Good morning, all. My name is Sandeep Kalra, and as Pari mentioned, I represent Persistent Systems. I am a president at Persistent, and I run our technology services business. So today's topic, as Pari, challenged me to present to all of you as the GIC leaders, is some thoughts about how we could be as an ecosystem, looking very differently at the future in the current scenario and beyond. And so my thoughts are more outside in, and I hope you will appreciate that. So without further ado, a little bit about Persistent. Persistent is a 30-year-old company. We work with many of you and your headquarters. We are roughly about 10,600 of us as team members, roughly 500 million in revenue globally. Majority of our revenue comes from US and Europe and Asia Pac, which is predominantly India-based GICs. What we do for a living is outsource product development, taking the same tenets to enterprises, which are increasingly wanting to be software driven. And today, for that matter, one can argue every enterprise, every company is a software driven enterprise. And we will see that increasingly accelerate in the post-COVID era, as we are all witnessing. So getting on to the current scenario, all of us were taken by surprise by this COVID crisis striking us. Pre-COVID, every industry was pretty much looking at the economy being good, achieving sustainable growth. Innovation was not an issue. The PE, VC money was not necessarily an issue, and everyone was in the software, the SaaS area, looking to live to the golden rule of 40. And between profitability and the growth, a number of companies were sustaining the 40% mark. And then came the COVID impact. Demand all of a sudden, started vanishing. A lot of companies saw their profits, vanish, because if your revenue goes down and your cost is the same, your profits, common sense kind of, goes down. And we are in an era where nobody has a crystal ball to exactly say what the recovery will look like. And the recovery can be a U-shaped, V-shaped, L-shaped. We have seen all kinds of hypotheses around that. And we all got used to a very new three-letter word called WFH. And maybe 6 months back, if somebody had asked what WFH stands for, a lot of people may not have necessarily known it. But today, every organization, whether it is a service provider, whether it is a GIC, whether it is a parent of a GIC, this is the norm. We are all a community of globally virtual teams, everyone working from home. The Zooms, WebEx, 8x8 collaboration platforms like Microsoft Teams, etc., are our new platform for working, and so on. So that being the context, what we have started hearing more and more from our customers, customers like yourselves, the venture funds, the private equity companies, industry analysts, and so on. Every boardroom is asking the executives to perform a stress test. The stress test is basically saying, okay, if your revenues go down, and the revenues go down by 10%, 20%, 30%, how are you still going to be profitable? How do you take care of the revenue degrowth on one side, the sustainability or the resilience on the other side? And hence, there's a dire need in those scenarios, as an outcome of those stress tests, to contain the burn rate and assess your ability to pay down the debt. A lot of large product companies, large enterprises, in order to grow, had taken down debt. And now, with the profitability coming down, cash flows being an issue, that's again an issue. So that's one side of the things that is happening. So downstream of that, the expense part, it needs to be absolutely prioritized. And it's a discussion between anyone who holds a P&L, the CFO, the CEO, and the short-term revenue-led innovation is what is taking all the more precedence. And sustaining engineering and doing multiple releases for mid to end of life products, in that category, that is the category where the spend needs to be absolutely squeezed out. And those are the kind of priorities, and more orientation towards resilience, that's kind of taking the top mind share right now. The rule of 40, if somebody still wants to follow that, and a number of companies still want to chase that, not a bad one, but it means if growth is elusive, profits and cash is king. So that's where the entire thing about resiliency, variabilization of cost, doing the prioritization of every dollar spent is kind of being talked about in every company. And if we look at it, we did a study along with Zinnov, and we believe there are going to be three phases. First is sustain, which is basically, make sure that you survive and you are skinning down for the current scenario. And then, as we move through, as we see, some kind of medication come around for the COVID side with time, hopes of vaccines and so on, we will evolve through this and we will again hopefully prosper, and this will be a bad dream that never happened. But till then, we are in the sustain phase and we all need to look at things with a different lens. Now, if we look at it, this is an old adage, it's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's the most adaptable. So, in today's world, it's not about, looking the other side and saying, hey, this COVID thing will go away. Things came like this. This is not another 2008. This is not another 9/11. This is a crisis that is across geographies, continents, countries, cities, pick your pick. And it's also across all sectors. So it impacts all of us one way or the other. And as of now, nobody has a perfect answer to when is it going to settle down, when is the next phase coming, and so on and so forth. When do we get our lives back? When does that WFH become one part of our life and not the only part of our life? So that's where, if we were to look at adapting, we very seriously believe in every crisis, there will be some winners and there will be some losers, and somewhere a lot of people will be in between. And all of this will depend on the way you take your decisions. The difference is in about how you take your decisions, how do you take the battle turf, move the battle turf, how do you make those choices that kind of make you rewrite the rules of the game, engage more effectively with your stakeholders, your customers, which are the most important, your employees, equally important. And then, there's a lot of other stakeholders, whether it is your investors, Ps, VCs, and so on. But it is the time to take, adaptable decisions. And that's where, if we look at it, another aspect to it, today, if somebody looks at, the Amazons of this world, the Ubers of this world, the Airbnbs of this world, these are companies that have created businesses without owning assets. And if you look at it, they basically, the value creation that's happening there is far more than, the companies that own these assets, the companies that make these assets, and so on. So if we were to look at the paradigm that's coming on, and this is not a new paradigm, this is a paradigm that has happened in many industries for years and all. We saw the entire contract manufacturing industry come through, where people, instead of owning factories, gave their factories away or parts thereof. And there emerged, different manufacturing hubs in different parts of the world and so on. And still, people continue to be best cost producers of their goods and services, leveraging these assets which they didn't own. Similarly, if we look at it today, when we think about a car ownership, there are many reasons for that, but the predominant reason is it helps us go from point A to point B in the most effective and comfortable manner. Now with Uber, Lyft, Ola, many other of these ride shares, the whole concept is being challenged. Doesn't mean that everyone will leave their car tomorrow and move to all these in a 100% manner, but there is a balance that is happening. More and more people are understanding the utility of these platforms and so on. If we look to the cloud side, a number of you are embracing cloud more and more. Today, a number of you are already there and you're increasingly going to move more. And interestingly, when you go to the cloud, you get the flexibility, affordability, the scalability, but you never ask about the input. What is the bare metal that you're using? Can I look at the bare metal? Can you give the bare metal to me in my GIC and I will control it with my IT and so on? So a lot of these things have become utilities. You trust them for their security and so on. You have partnerships with them and you trust their roadmap and their longevity. Similarly, a lot of software companies have used partnerships, reseller partnerships, SI partnerships, solution partnerships for go-to-market and so on. So essentially, if we look at delinking the outcome from the asset ownership, that's been a paradigm in many different industries, many different parts of the value chain. And there is a reason for us to potentially, in the new scenario, look at engineering as a reconfigurable Lego block. What does it mean? It's like, if you are a manufacturing oriented organization, you need your goods to be produced by someone. You put someone in a place like Shenzhen who basically goes around in the ecosystem, gets the ecosystem stitched up for you, and without you owning the factories, gives you a infinite scale, working closely with those ecosystem players. And in our parlance, this is time to rethink the entire ecosystem, the entire play between a GIC, headquarters, and the service provider. Now, in our parlance, the next generation GIC leaders are not going to be the ones who own the maximum assets. If I am a GIC leader, it is not about me owning 10,000 engineers. It may not even be about 1,000 engineers. It may be about, what can I get done for my organization? How do I align my priorities? If I look at it, the headquarters on one side is rethinking the business. They're rethinking the focus about customers. They're rethinking about resilience. How do I become the biggest enabler, the biggest partner with my headquarter management team? How do I, without creating more fixed assets, without asking for more capex, without asking for more money in deploying all this, bring the power of infinite scalability from the ecosystem? How do I bring the best of the ecosystem, where I can bring the partners based on their capability, based on different business models, and bring that advantage to my headquarters? So how do I become a very important player in my company ecosystem, bringing all these tenets while not saddling my ecosystem, my company, with fixed cost? That is the paradigm that I would want to challenge all of us with, as partners and as in the same industry as thought leaders. Now, if we look at it, there are many ways of doing it, and this is just a point of view. There could be other point of views and so on. One could look at a GIC and say, I want to work, I want to scale, and I want my partners to give me resources. I want to own those resources. Just give me your best resources. I will get it done for my headquarters. But you know what? I will need more real estate. Even if I have part work from home, I will have fixed cost. The execution risk will be with me, and so on. So compared to that, there could be a mechanism in which you could have a managed, captive, a managed GIC extension, where you could have much more scalability. The entire ecosystem, whether it is the Indian landscape in terms of service providers, Eastern Europe, US based, that is all available to you. That's infinite capacity, infinite scale, no fixed cost. And you could also look at potentially parts of your GIC in a way, in a business construct, where you could even potentially monetize that latent asset, create a flexible capacity, and so on. Not only is it a question of managing cost and capacity, you could also look at this whole ecosystem in delivering accelerated digital transformation. What do I mean by that? A lot of our GICs have been in existence for long. The next generation skills may not necessarily be available within the GIC, but if you work with a partner, carve out a certain part of GIC, give it to a partner to run for a certain kind of work. The partner could also potentially give you the capacity to swap out some of the assets in terms of resources, leverage them for other engagements, bring in the latest cutting edge technology based resources, help you in accelerating the headquarters needs for accelerated digital transformation in today's world. Take this to the product or portfolio side. There could be many ways of managing products, containing costs. There could be a way in which you could take a portfolio of products, give it to a partner. The partner could be doing the same in a way that the partner is giving you a fixed cost, giving you productivity gains year on year. And it's no longer give me people and I will manage it, I will have execution risk. It's okay, partner, you are good at doing this. Take this, give me an assured productivity, give me an assured cost, give me SLAs, give me penalties, so that you are held to performance. And at the same time, I know my cost in a predictable manner, and which is a declining cost over the years. Could also be done in a manner in which you variabilize the cost. You say, okay, partner X, here is the product portfolio. Let's construct a revenue share mechanism. You run the entire engineering end to end and give me a certain percentage of revenue as your cost. So the contribution margins are protected. So if the revenue goes up, what you pay to the partner goes up a little bit. The partner has a vested interest in making sure that there's a roadmap acceleration, there is a CSAT that happens, and so on. So that's the other tenet. If the revenue goes down, the partner is in it with you, and there is a certain amount of cushion that you create for your own organization. Similarly, on the enterprise side, the same tenets can be done on the functional carve out. The essential thing that we are talking about all this is, let's think about a paradigm in which performance is not linearly proportional to the asset that you create, the fixed cost that you create. Let's look at outcome rather than input from the partner perspective. The partner should be held on outcome that the partner creates with the GIC. GIC becomes a strategic partner to the parent. The entire ecosystem is performance driven, outcome driven, not input driven. And remember, today, a lot of us talk about how work from home is possibly going to become a norm. Think about it. One of the things that GICs used to tell partners, it's very important to have people in our campus. There are IP reasons, there is this reason, that reason. Today, we are all a virtual workforce. Today, we are all talking about work from home with the same levels of IP security and so on. So there is no reason for us to have an excuse saying, no, we want everything to be done in our facilities. If we are a GIC, we are a headquarters, we should be, as we are today, open and willing to have our employees work from home, have partners work from their premises, or a mix of work from home and their premises, but contain them on the issues with respect to cybersecurity, IP protection, with respect to outcome based relationships rather than an input based. And whatever I'm talking about, we as a company have been doing it, and similarly other partners have also been doing it. This is a known paradigm in the industry. It's something that we need to take and accentuate. So if you look at some of the leaders that we have worked with, the first case is with a large financial services company where we are driven on outcome, and this has been a multi-year managed service kind of a model where we have certain products where outcome KPIs are clearly defined and we are paid based on that, not based on the headcount we deploy. The second one is with one of our larger customers, and where we do a revenue share where we have 20 plus products, where we do right from product management down to sustaining engineering, L1 L2 support, 9 yards in 9 countries plus, and that's again on a revenue share model. Third one is an ITSM product we took over at Persistent from one of the largest technology companies. It's a revenue share model and so on. The fourth one, the unicorn in data virtualization space. This is a fairly recent, fairly large, collaboration deal for us, where we are running a managed captive. We have taken over a GIC, turned that into a managed GIC or captive with the traits of flexibility, with the traits of bringing more acceleration in the technologies, and even the professional services, scaling up customers and so on. Last but not the least, we are working with multiple different Ps and their portfolio companies on product sustenance, carving out product portfolios, giving them fixed cost, productivity over the years. All of these are outcome driven models. And I definitely believe in our ecosystem today, there is a very strong case for us to collaborate as thought leaders, work with our headquarters, and bring these kind of tenets to our next generation things. With that, I will stop.